All we wanted was to make good beer. Our ambition was never this big. We never look to be the biggest, but we do look to be the best. Community is a big drive of what we do. A force for good and not just a cool ground with some awesome beer.
Maybe one of the most important questions is...
It's like asking, who's your favorite kid? 11 years in beer, we've seen so much change. The quality of the brewing industry in the UK just, went from sort of mediocre to sky high. Don't ever think you've hit the top of success.
The mission statement remains the same today as it did when we started the company. I wanted to do projects that were meaningful in their design and their impact to the community. When you can find that kind of alignment, I think you can go out and do great things. The impact of what happens in those buildings is what matters most. You need that overarching vision that is enduring, that stands the test of time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Inspiring Industry Podcast, where we share our conversations with leaders from around the globe. I'm your host, Danielle Cham, and this is our final installment of 2023, and I cannot believe where this year has gone. But it has been such a cool year. The podcast has been able to share conversations on electric vehicles, AI, supply chain, and my absolute favorite was, of course, the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team interview. You can find all of those interviews on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. But in the spirit of Christmas and in the name of nostalgia, this episode we are platforming two businesses in particular where the work means a little more than just the day-to-day running of a company. We hear from Bradley Cummings, the CEO and co-founder of Tiny Rebel Brewing Company in the UK, who is very passionate about the business going beyond its own little bubble, and he believes in his impact on the environment, the influence that he has on customers, and just the ability to share great tasting beer with as many people as possible. Following that interview, we also spoke with Mark Hourigan, the CEO of Hourigan Construction, who is based in the US. And Mark has a really great outlook on the work that he does having an impact on the people that occupy those spaces. So for him, the work isn't necessarily the type of project that the company does, which is great, absolutely. But Mark is especially passionate about the difference that he's making and the spaces and the ways in which they get utilized. I might not necessarily be doing that justice, but you'll have to stay tuned and keep listening for more on the episode. I was really inspired by both of these leaders. And I think they're both great reminders of how having an inner motivation just makes the work that we do so much more purposeful and so much more fulfilling. But enough from me. I'll hand over to Bradley, who kicks our conversation off with sharing a little bit more about how impressed he was with the journey that the company has been on. Over to Bradley. Looking back on these 11 years, how does the business compare to what your original vision was for it? Has it become everything you hoped for?
All we wanted was to make good beer, get out to people, so people could explore. That was what Tiny Rebel was all about, making, craft beer, the drinkability side of it, and get people submerged in the brand, which the brand for Tiny Rebel, it's a projection of Gaz and I, what we're interested in, when it comes down to beer names, branding, ideas. But, we would have been happy way back when, having a business, just the two of us, and stayed at that for the rest of our lives. To be honest, our ambition was never this big, and I'll be honest with that. We never thought it could be as big as sort of it is now, and have the love from the fan base that we've got.
In our research, we noted that you were named Best Craft Beer, which is a massive achievement. What other highlights have happened for the business this year, and what do you think allowed for those milestones?
I think this year has been a build-up of the last probably 2 years, really. Since COVID, where the world tipped upside down, and we're trying to find our feet again on the back of that. Coming for at the back of 21, 22. So our main focus was rebuilding. Rebuilding and putting a big emphasis on people. L&D. Upskilling, having the right people, building the right team, molding the right team culture. So it was a lot around, building the foundation for us to then kick on again. Sort of into that, what the new world was about, post-COVID. And I think that set us up really, really well. Community is a big drive of what we do, and also, our sort of planet as well. So we sort of, the way I describe it, it's we've gone from being a bit more infant, into being a more mature teenager. It's how I feel on a business level, where we will now become, a force for good, and not just a cool brand with some awesome beer.
And I think that sort of speaks into the next question. You mentioned community work. With Christmas coming up, what are some of the other initiatives that the company supports, and why would you say they're important to you?
Yeah, so Christmas is a big one that we do, but if I just started from sort of what we do throughout the year, last year we launched the Tiny Rebel Community Fund, which we put a pot of money together, just raised by the business out of our profit, and from there people can they can apply basically for a grant, if you want to call it that, where we support any sort of community projects or individual initiatives, throughout the whole of the UK. And we open that twice a year. We got one that we just opened now and closed in October. So we do it twice a year. And I think we had around 250 people apply, and they could be anything from a personal level to if someone wanted to do something good in the community. It could be a community garden, or helping a school. It can be anything. And some of the, we got an internal committee where we look and vet, and, we select, the winners, if you want to call it that. But yeah, that's one of the great initiatives that we've started. Jump into Christmas. We do meals for people in need on Christmas Day with, people in the business, our friends, our family, everyone chips in, and we cook around 350 meals, and we also then deliver them, throughout Newport. So that's a big thing that we do around Christmas. And then throughout the year, with various charities that we work with, whether it's donations or we got a big brewery and tap room, and bar restaurant at the brewery, where we give the facility, we give the venue out for free, for charities to come in, to do events to help raise money for themselves.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brad. Just changing the subject quickly, some of the names for the beers clearly have some brilliant creativity and a bit of fun behind them as well. So maybe one of the most important questions is, which one is your favorite?
It's like asking, who's your favorite kid? I think the great thing around beer within the industry now, and not just talking for ourselves, there's a beer for every occasion, right? Anything down to, low non-alc, up to a slightly higher ABV beer, sour, stout, you name it, IPA. I think that's the great thing. There's a beer out there now, which is where, the progression of craft beer within the UK has come on massively, and was massively accelerated then during COVID. With people wanting to explore, craft beer if they haven't been introduced it to already. But my favorite beer is probably it's my go-to, and I'm going to be biased. Is Club Tropica. It's we first created it back in 2014. Probably one of the at the time, putting fruits into a beer wasn't really a thing. We're a bit of a live on that sort of innovation level, and it's been a beer that's not just stuck with us, but stuck with fans and people who love it. It was the first beer my mum ever enjoyed, and still drinks. So if I can convert my mum to drinking beer, then I think we're onto a winner for introducing craft beer to other drinkers.
You mentioned that the business aims to have a beer for every occasion. What are your thoughts on the non-alcoholic industry? Do you think that that's a sector that will continue to grow?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, more as soon, on trade becoming braver, you'll soon start seeing it on draft, a bit more regularly, rather than just a can or a bottle in the fridge. I definitely think there's a call for that. Again, 11 years in beer, we've seen so much change. I almost feel like we're a bit of the godfathers at the moment of craft beer. We've seen so much change in the industry and products and trends. Yeah, definitely with a new generation coming into beer, they want something different. I drink non-alc. I think now 1 in 3 drinkers, will either drink or try a non-alcoholic, beer when they're out. So I think it's a great thing, one for health and one for choice.
Following that, how would you say the brewing industry has changed, if at all, or evolved as a result of the pandemic? What sort of influence did COVID-19 and the hospitality shutdown have on the sort of innovation within the industry?
Yeah, so I craft beer, I think, went through a huge sort of acceleration phase. Early 2015 to the pandemic. That's 5 years. The amount of breweries that opened up, the amount of beer and choice out there was absolutely phenomenal. The quality of the brewing industry in the UK just went from sort of mediocre to sky high, and we all, lifted our game up. I think that was a great thing as a beer drinker. There was probably no better time, and still now. But I think off the back of the pandemic, where, there was so much choice out there, and variety, I think now people have gone back out, into the pub, and they've sort of fallen back into a bit of a go-to. I don't see that choice, the big variety of choice is there as much as it was pandemic. I think it's still there in online e-commerce and breweries wanting to experiment. But I think people go out for a different experience now. I think it is a lot more experience led. When you go out, try new venues. It's not just about the beer. It's not just about what you're drinking. It's the atmosphere, the ambiance. It's everything. The experience, the customer service. And that's what's really driving people out. And there's some great venues out there and brands at the moment in hospitality.
On a more controversial note, how have you navigated working in a family business? I think you mentioned that you've been working with your brother-in-law. Do you manage to keep work and family separate, or is that a sort of ongoing process?
We've learned over the last 11 years. I'll tell you, Gaz and I, we work with each other every day for 11 years, and our relationship is as good as ever. Within business you have ups and downs, but we when we first set Tiny Rebel up, it was never going to go beyond that. And we're proud to be independent and family run. And that ethos will never change. No matter what the future holds, that ethos is always going to stay the same. It comes with challenges, like all things. But I think when you've got a passion and a love behind it, that's you see really hits people on an emotional level, then yeah, nothing else really matters then.
As a leader that has built the business from scratch, what advice have you been given that has kept you motivated during some really challenging moments to get the business to where it is today?
So I think the two biggest things, and I've sort of tried to pin it down, is stay humble and teamwork. They're the two things for me that I always sort of reflect and go back to. You're not any better than the team around you, and don't ever think you've hit the top of success, because you'll never get there. So they're the two things for me.
How would you describe what it's like to work for Tiny Rebel? What's the company culture like?
Oh, there's a lot of drive and initiatives that we do. The first thing starts from the staff survey, which we started 2 years ago. When I said around, really trying to put that foundation piece in and understand, we're across Tiny Rebel, we employ 165 people. 11 years ago, there was 2 of us. We're learning as we go, massively. Our workforce is the heartbeat and drive of Tiny Rebel. It's no longer me and Gaz. We're in it. We're in the business every single day. And every area of the business we cover. So I like to think we got the trust of everyone. But yeah, a lot of initiatives that we put in place, things that we've sort of looked and signed into that would benefit them. So things like the real living wage, things like in-hour contracts, feedback. We put a lot into recruitment, L&D. We put a lot into, our benefits package for staff, a real career progression across all the business. And that flexible working, fun environment, they're real sort of key drivers of what makes Tiny Rebel tick.
And what about the future? What can customers look forward to as we head towards 2024?
Well, apart from the easiest answer of more beer, but no, I think the main thing for us, we've always had, the drive and passion for us is always stemmed from us getting beer out to as many people as possible. We want to get Tiny Rebel into as many pubs and hands as we can. To win the hearts and minds of everyone. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And next year, we want to try and accelerate that, even more so than we have done in previous years.
Brilliant, Brad. Thank you. And my final question, where would you like to see the business in 5-10 years' time? What is the long-term vision for the company?
Keep doing what we're doing. Keep innovating, and keep driving us to be a force for good. Across our people, community, planet. I think the byproduct is we never look to be the biggest, but we do look to be the best. And I think that continuous improvement that we always talk around internally. We just want to be the best that we can be. If that makes us one of the leading UK brewers, or the top UK craft brewery, great. We're doing the right thing. So let's not take our eye off that. We're just going to continue what we're doing. It's working, and we love to evolve as a business and as a brand. We've got, we love change, we love evolving, trying something new. So that's what the next 5 years will become, diversifying. So yeah,
I think what really stood out for me from the interview with Bradley was the work that the company does, especially around Christmas, because I think that for most of us in the industry, that's a time to shut down and to restore as we head into the new year. But I think that time is also incredibly difficult, not only for those, who are just working in the industry from day to day, but I think because it's easy to take for granted what that time symbolizes for other people who may be less advantaged, whatever the case may be. I thought it was very admirable that him and his team just keep going and give back, and whether that's making a meal for strangers or just reaching out. I think that sort of warmth goes a very long way. Next interview was really awesome, and it was such a cool time to be able to speak with Mark Hourigan, who is the CEO of Hourigan Construction. We now travel over to the US, where we hear about Mark's journey in the construction industry, and more so, what makes the business important is not necessarily the projects that they do, but the impact that the spaces they create has. For example, they work on hospitals, care centers, and I think that for Mark, being able to create spaces for other people to excel in their line of work was very on brand with Inspiring Industry. And I had a great conversation listening to the ethos that he's been able to carry throughout his career and how he has worked really hard to push that forward into his company culture. So I'll hand over to Mark. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today. So my research noted that Hourigan Construction is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. Is that correct?
We absolutely are, yes.
Brilliant. I'd love to know some of the milestones that have brought the business, one, the longevity, but also the success that's led it to 30 years.
I had the benefit of working for a really great mentor who taught me the construction business before he retired. And upon his retirement, I started our company in 1993. And what I love about our company is the vision that we put forth, 30 years ago. The mission statement remains the same today as it did when we started the company. And for me, it was always about the relationships, the people, and becoming that trusted advisor. And I wanted to do projects that were meaningful in their design, in their impact to the community, and whatever. There's lots of ways to tackle this business. And for me, I wanted to do the project that I thought would be most enduring and most impactful. So our mission statement back then was developing lifelong, uniquely remarkable relationships and buildings. And that is still our mission statement today. And it is, I think, the cornerstone of who we are and how we go about doing the work that we do.
Love that. Absolutely love that. My next question was really, how would you say Hourigan Construction separates itself from competitors? But I think by the way you describe relationships, that's probably one of the key factors.
It is. And, for me, I had a wonderful mentor in my person who brought me into this business, but I had great mentors growing up. My dad, my grandfather, my mother were just terrific influences in my life. And for me, they lived by, pretty strong core values. And I've been the beneficiary of being around that growing up, and it is the essence of, I think, who I am. And so being able to push that through the organization, to use that as the cornerstone of who we hire and why we hire them, that serving with integrity matters, that not disappointing our clients matter, doing things in a way that reflects the best version of us in the most authentic and fair and balanced way is important to me. And it should be important to everyone who works here. And I do believe that it is. So part of my job is to create that culture in terms of doing that. And I think our people live the mission statement that we have because it's also who they are. Yeah. And that when you can find that kind of alignment, I think you can go out and do great things, and they can represent the company and what our brand and what we stand for in really great ways.
Could you give me some examples of some of the projects that you've kind of brought to life that reflect those core values?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. we have done a great many buildings in multiple sectors of the marketplace. So we do a lot of office building work, which is, as you know, today is going through an interesting transition of what does the office look like going forward. But that has been one of our key areas. So we have done new corporate headquarters. We've done new operations centers. We've done things that the impact of what happens in those buildings is what matters most. The architecture sometimes is amazing and awesome, and I think that's great. And we do get to change skylines, and that's a very fun and tangible thing to do. But how you transform a company's culture and how they work and what they do is particularly satisfying. As you build amazing research and healthcare facilities, knowing that the research and the care and the things that are going on in those buildings, it's about the impact of who they are serving in what it is that we're doing. We gravitate to projects like that. We run to those because they speak to us, and what we're trying to do in the work that we do in building great buildings is what is the impact of what's happening inside that. We do a lot of work for nonprofits. Some of our, I'll say, most touching projects are probably some of our smallest projects, but our people feel a high alignment to a school of autism or to a organization that only serves the underserved in those ways. And while they are not the biggest and most glamorous projects, they are tremendously impactful. Our people raise their hand for those projects because they know that they really do begin to speak to the essence of what we're trying to accomplish through the buildings that we build.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Kind of on that note, I'd like to talk more about your own career. You mentioned having wonderful influences and mentors in your life. But also considering the nonprofit aspect of work, what are your sort of inner motivations that have, one, brought you to where you are today? What has that career journey looked like? And why is it something that you hold so closely?
Well, I first started out working for a large corporation coming right out of college or university. And I learned a tremendous amount about what I'll call the corporate lifestyle and the benefits of understanding the right sales techniques of the things that you do. And while it was wonderful to work for this large organization and had an enjoyable experience, I realized that my dad and most of our family friends were all entrepreneurs who owned their own businesses. And there was a very direct correlation between their work effort, their integrity, their word to the outcomes that they had, good or bad. You had to live with both sides of that. So there was a very high correlation. And so for me, I found that to be something that I didn't necessarily have while working for a large corporation. And so when I had the opportunity to start my own business and drive, hopefully, that same behavior throughout our organization, that our customers and our clients could see, that our community could see, for me, that felt like a way to accomplish a wonderful business model, but at the same time, try and make the community a better place. And maybe the people that we touch, whether they are clients, customers, or our own employees, or the subcontractors we work with, the design entities we work with, even the localities we work with, I hope the experience with us is a different one. And one that they choose to seek out. And if we can create that atmosphere and that brand for ourselves, then I think people take a lot of pride in that. And for me, when I see others grow, develop, mature, and speak about their career or our company in a way with great pride, very motivating for me.
I absolutely love that. I'd like to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. With your expertise, when you look at the construction industry overall, and I think also taking into consideration that 2023, coming off the sort of stability, if I can call that, after the pandemic, while also facing its own market turbulence. What are the sorts of challenges that you're experiencing in the industry at the moment?
I would say the good news about when COVID hit was that in the United States market, 2008, 2009, we had a pretty severe downturn that lasted several years. And I would say if there was a lesson learned for me, it was not necessarily knowing which levers I needed to pull at that time to control cost, to have a plan that in the event of a sudden and severe downturn, that we knew which steps to take in order to both preserve the company, our people, and the capital, and the things that you need to do. When the revenue spigot is, if not turned off, turned way down, you've got to get very smart and creative. So we learned a lot in that economic downturn, and we fortunately fared, reasonably well through all of that. So when COVID hit, we were much better prepared to deal with quickly, and I'll say in a more nimble fashion, knowing what to do in order to deal with this business disruption that came along. So while they were different challenges, we were fortunate that construction was viewed at this time an essential industry and could keep working. So we were fortunate. But you had supply chain issues, you had real manpower challenges, you had infectious control and disease, type of protocols you had to put in place. And so doing a lot of healthcare work that we do, we actually were really well prepared for that. And we just simply took some of those measures from our large healthcare projects and pushed them across the organization in guidelines. So again, I think the collaboration we could pull from our various team leaders of these different business sectors on what to do and how to do it and push that across, and in turn, create training and development and be a resource, not only for our subcontractors and our owners, but really for the community to come in and look at, well, how are they doing this and how are they doing it well? And why is their incident rate so low? We were able to demonstrate, I'll call them some best practices that served us and our people well, but also we could extend that out beyond the direct reach of our company.
When you look back on 2023, what have been some of the highlights of this year?
2023 has been a great year in several ways. We have recently just completed one of the largest cross-laminated timber facilities in the United States, which is, I'll say, the next step in that sustainable journey that we are doing. And it's in the Charlottesville, Virginia area. We've moved our Charlottesville office to that new building. So we've invested in a building that we are developing and building and now occupying along with other tenants in the building. That's created an interesting dynamic in the company in terms of people seeing us going far beyond just building the building, but really becoming a part of that in what we are doing. We have done and continue to do a lot of work in the leadership development area. And as a matter of fact, we have leadership classes that we run through the organization, and we'll do them in multi-day stints. Actually teach one of those classes on relationship building and ethical leadership and the things that we do. Being able to share that with the folks in our organization and watch our next generation of leader begin to emerge and give them the opportunity to take the reins on a number of issues. Those are really fun things to do right now. At first, you grow a business. Then all of a sudden, I think you learn that your business is not just a series of projects that are strung together, but you've got a business strategy and an approach and things you're trying to do, and you're working on the business, not in the business. And now we're reaching this stage where it is fun to develop the next generation of leader and begin to put them in positions where they can really have a meaningful impact on the organization. And for us, 23 has been a lot of that type of work.
As a leader yourself, what is your sort of outlook on what it takes to be a great leader?
I think probably the most underrated attribute is the ability to truly listen. I think if you can truly listen and if you can learn as a leader, if you ask better questions, you'll get better information and you listen for those things. There are a lot of smart people in our organization, and because you have a leadership role or title, certainly doesn't mean you have all the answers. But if we can create the kind of environment where that information is shared freely, or we tackle challenges and opportunities collectively, then I think that's important. I think being truly strategic and thinking about where we're going, not just this year and next year, but where are we going in 5 years and 10 years and maybe 30 years? What is our North Star? And how do the annual business plans and activity and hiring and things that you do support that longer term journey? Recognizing it's not a linear line, right? It is sometimes a meandering path, and market dynamics and industry changes and things that happen force you to be creative and nimble. And I think that's the other attribute I would say is important. You need that overarching vision that is enduring, that stands the test of time, but you've got to understand how to maneuver through that based on the realities of what's happening long after you perhaps put that plan in place.
Absolutely. Looking towards 2024, what are you most excited about the new year?
The new year has us taking some significant leaps in our development company, and something I started 5 years ago as another way to better serve our clients. We don't just build buildings. We're now in a position to be able to buy land and own and develop and finance buildings in partnership with clients, or as a true fee-based developer, or as a long-term owner. Mostly to try and create better answers for our owners. I've learned a long time ago, it's never about us. It's always about the client and what is it that their needs are and how can we better serve those. And so I see great opportunities in our development company. We have some really significant projects on the construction side in the advanced manufacturing world that look pretty spectacular. We do a lot of work in college and universities, and some very exciting, kind of cutting edge projects for some universities in our area that I think will be really terrific. And then we will continue our leadership development, and again, creating new opportunities for people to lead, hopefully under the watchful guiding eyes of myself and others, to help develop them to be the next generation of owner and leader of the company.
Brilliant. And then also kind of, tapping into what you mentioned earlier about having that sort of long-term goal. Where would you like to see the business in 10 years' time?
The brand and reputation that this organization has developed over time is to be the trusted advisor in the markets that we serve here in Virginia. And we do travel with our clients and go outside of Virginia. But I think we'll be in new geographies. I think we'll be in new sectors. And it will be for us to hopefully remain that trusted partner and advisor to those clients that we serve and the markets that we serve, perhaps with a bigger footprint, perhaps with new markets that are emerging in the advanced manufacturing world, in the data center world, in the life sciences, as this part of the world continues to get better and better with those things, to do that, and then to maintain and hopefully enhance our position in the community as a community leader and a good corporate citizen that does everything it can outside of our day-to-day jobs to make our regions better than we found them when we started.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mark. And with that, that's all from us. It has been an absolute pleasure to host this podcast over 2023, and I am so excited for what we have to bring in the new year. So definitely stay tuned watch the space because there are going to be some really great changes. And I am really, if I haven't said that enough, really excited for the new conversations that we'll be having next year, for the great ways that we can learn from other leaders in the industry and to be able to share those stories with you. So find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you next year. From all of us over here at Inspiring Industry, thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode. This podcast episode is brought to you by Fine Lined Media. Inspiring Industry is written and hosted by Danielle Champ. Our sound engineer and videographer is Gavin Mitchell. Lee Prothero is our creative lead, and he's joined by Jamie Alvin, our graphics designer. Rosie Clegg and Sarah Rudge are our digital marketing executives. And we'd like to extend a special thanks to our assistant editor, Mary Float, and our editor, Libby Hammond. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Fine Lined Media and its team.